Senate Republicans failed to pass a repeal effort or replacement for the Affordable Care Act with a simple majority. And Trump claims that they are going to try their hand at this again next year, and that they essentially have enough votes to make it happen, although we all know that's not the case. I mean, they couldn't even pass it with a simple majority. Now, speaking to the press, Trump said that he will take matters into his own hands when it comes to one particular issue in regard to health care. He wants to allow people to buy health insurance across state lines. Take a listen.
I am considering an executive order on associations, and that will take care of a tremendous number of people with regard to health care. And I'll probably be signing a very major executive order where people can go out, cross state lines, do lots of things, and buy their own health care. And that will be probably signed next week. It's being finished now.
Okay, the rest of his quote was, it's going to cover a lot of territory and a lot of people, millions of people.
I'll probably be signing a very major executive order.
Right, that will allow people across state lines do a lot of things.
But I mean, I'll probably
do a lot of things.
What kind of president says I'll probably do anything?
What kind of president
it doesn't even
says
exist
do
yet.
a lot of things?
I'll probably be signing a very, well then just sign it. You're the executive, order it, chum. I'll probably be signing, and the very, probably be signing. It's not just a major order.
Very major.
It's a very major order.
Okay.
It's very major.
So let's talk a little bit about the ramifications of this executive order, if it's found to be an executive order that could even be put into effect, because there's a big question mark in regard to whether the federal government can get involved in the regulations that states have for insurance companies. Now, as you guys know, regulations vary state by state. Some of the red states have way less regulations when it comes to private insurance. Some of the blue states have stricter regulations. And so when you create a system where people can buy insurance across state lines, what do you think insurance companies are going to do? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to go to states where there are the least regulations, and it's going to be a race to the bottom. Less regulations mean you, as the consumer, the individual buying the insurance, get screwed over. And so that's one of the reasons why you're not allowed to buy insurance across state lines. It gives states more of a say in regard to how the healthcare in that state is run. On the surface, it seems great.
But because they're doing it, I'm sure it isn't.
Right.
I mean, that's a joke, but it isn't.
Also, it's so at odds with the legislation that
he's just tried. Yeah, right, exactly. That he just tried to pass.
Right. And the reason he says we're going to pass something next year, we're going to pass it. The rules change next year. The reason they're hurrying it for Saturday is because you're going to need 60 senators after Saturday. He's not going to have 60 senators. They're not going to be Democrats. They're just going to come all of a sudden flocking to Graham Cassidy after this is done. This is at odds with what that bill is. It's so haphazard the way this government's being run. And that's, so even when he says, I made light of it, but you're going to cross state lines to buy insurance, do a lot of other things. Who knows what those are?
What is other things?
He clearly doesn't, right?
Well, he wasn't even really, okay, so here's the thing about Trump when it comes to this whole healthcare debate. He's been bullying GOP senators who refuse to vote in favor of it because they're actually, shockingly concerned about their constituents and what their constituents want. But at the same time, Trump is not involved in any of these discussions at all. And what I mean by that is, he doesn't even know what these proposals include. He doesn't know how it works. All he wants is a legislative win. I want a legislative win. He hasn't poured over studies over how it would impact consumers or how it might negatively have an impact on Americans who need insurance. Doesn't care about any of that, right? Doesn't know, doesn't care, isn't interested. He's too busy tweeting at 5 in the morning after watching whatever cable news show he's watching. And that's the thing. He is playing with people's lives, right? And simultaneously bullying lawmakers who have at least some knowledge of what they're voting on.
There's 48 Democratic senators and a handful of Republican senators who would, I presume, be interested in fixing Obamacare and bolstering it in the places that it needs to bolster.
Listen, Lamar Alexander and Patty Murray were working on it right up till the end when Patty Murray said, well, they're bringing Graham Cassidy. We don't need to work on this.
Again, in this Politico article, there's just a great line that is worth reading. May I read it?
Sure.
So after it, I'll maybe signing a very major, probably. So Trump claimed that, then he said, talking about Graham Cassidy, the 52-member caucus has until Saturday to pass a bill which is 50 votes, but Senate Majority Leader McConnell pulled a vote because the last-ditch legislation lacks enough support. Here's what Trump said today. Trump claimed, however, the Republicans do have the necessary votes, though he later said, so they do have it, though he later said we're only one off, maybe two. Then he repeatedly insisted that a Republican senator, likely referring to Senator Thad Cochran, who's recovering from urological surgery at home in Mississippi, is a yes but can't vote because he's in the hospital. I can't take him out of the hospital, Trump noted. A spokesman for Senator Cochran said the senator is not in the hospital. I mean, it's just like it's just madness and lunacy and gibberish. And by the way, and all this effort then to repeal the Affordable Care Act has undermined the way the Affordable Care Act works.
Right.
I mean,
of course it is. That was a big fear of a lot of these senators.
Right. And so that now the Affordable Care Act is in worse shape than it's ever been in, thanks to them, and they're not going to try to fix it. We have Trump now saying he'll sign an executive order where it remains unclear whether he'll be able legally, that'll have any effect at all. And the odds that an executive order fixes what's wrong with Obamacare and helps people get more affordable insurance strikes me as inconceivable that he would be signing that order.
And just to be clear, they have absolutely no intention of helping to improve Obamacare because they don't think that that's a good idea politically. This is all about politics because Trump, first of all, wants to undo anything that Obama has done, even if it's a good policy. And we all acknowledge that the Affordable Care Act needs to be improved. There are definitely flaws, but it was supposed to be a foundation in which we improve on. Republicans have a great opportunity to do just that, to actually be leaders, to put politics aside and say, hey, you know what? Let's do something to help these increasing premiums, maybe some cost controls. But they're not really interested in doing that. They want to see it fail.
And we know from reporting that what some Republicans are hoping happens is that they just wait. And Trump said today that from a Republican standpoint, we have the votes, we'll vote in January, February, or March. I mean, to do that, they would have to pass another continuing resolution, right? And
Correct.
They would have to decide that they want to do it on health care and not the budget, because you can only do one unless they combine them.
Unless they
combine them, which was super tricky to combine them.
Almost impossible.
Almost impossible. So the likelihood that they'll be able to do it in January, February, or March with only 50 votes is unlikely. But we know from reporting that what they're hoping for is that sometime next year when they maybe can do it with 50 votes again, if that's the way they decide to go, that by then the Affordable Care Act will be so significantly weakened that there'll be less groundswell against repealing it and more an effort. So they want, again, what we've known they wanted, but what we've now seen widely reported, they want people's health care plan to fail.
Yeah.
So that they can repeal the thing that has Barack Obama's name on it. That's madness. That's insanity.
By then, we're also going to be dealing with Robert Mueller and what he has to say.
We're dealing with Robert Mueller and the likelihood that some of these Republicans then, the closer we get to a midterm election in 2018, that they then want to get involved and be in charge of repealing it. And I think that what Paul Ryan had said apparently at one point to Mitch McConnell was, hey man, whatever you pass, we'll pass. Right? So that they don't, so that they could get it done in the deadline. Well, then you're going to be looking at some unquestionably vulnerable members of the House, and I suspect as we get into March, April, and May, they're going to be like, I really don't want to repeal people's health care.
This is not an election year issue. They never want to do this in election year.
But their plan continues to be to weaken Obamacare.
And his plan is to continue doing what you said, which is bullying these senators and bullying these congressmen. Today, just very quickly, he was in Indiana selling his tax reforms. He flew with Senator Joe Donnelly, a Democrat from Indiana, on Air Force One to Indiana, did his rally. In the middle of the rally, looked at Joe Donnelly and said, we're going to work as hard as, if you don't vote for this, we're going to work so hard to make sure you're not elected here, after he flew him out there, right? Well, on the one hand, he's a Republican president. He's not going to work hard to get Joe Donnelly elected, a Democrat in Indiana, but it's just this threatening and this bullying is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's what he loves to do.
So if you're a Democrat, I got it. Don't get on the plane.
If you like the Young Turks, you'll love Young Turks membership. TYTnetwork.com/join.